Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the 25th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in London on Thursday. The Prime Minister was received by his British counterpart, Theresa May, and Commonwealth Secretary-General Baroness Patricia Scotland. During the two executive sessions at the CHOGM, the main issues discussed were strengthening democracy and the rule of law, the state of the international trading system, achieving the sustainable development goals and climate action, and security issues faced by the Commonwealth countries. Prime Minister Modi also made several key interventions at the sessions where he stressed on capacity building of small states and small islands that are part of the Commonwealth fold. He also announced doubling of India's contribution to the Commonwealth Fund for Technical Cooperation for Small Island States. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze India's pivotal role at the CHOGM. Joining me on the program today are Ashok Sajjanhar, former ambassador, Nikhil, Chouguley co-founder, resident tax, Pant, head strategic studies, ORF, and Shiv Shankar Mukherjee, former ambassador as well. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Ambassador Sajjanhar, I'd like to begin with you first, of course. You know, a grouping that was neglected for several years by India suddenly seems to have come to the forefront with Prime Minister Modi attending the CHOGM and, you know, taking part actively in all the sessions there. What were your takeaways?
You know, my takeaway is that it is an organization, 53 member countries. It has great potential, but the potential has not been realized. But I think going forward, I think all the countries around, including India, see that there is great value in this association. You know, to begin with, as far as the international scenario is concerned, there's great turbulence, there is great, you know, it's very chaotic, both because the West is declining and China is rising, China in terms of its military rise, its assertiveness. So there is great uncertainty and unpredictability. So I think countries are looking at different international fora formats. As far as UK is concerned, they are coming out of European Union. So they are really looking at some other platforms where they can engage with the world outside and where they can have meaningful, mutually beneficial and advantageous partnerships. As far as India is concerned, over the last few years, India's own profile, its own strength, its own prestige, that has increased. And India is looking around also to see how it can engage with a much broader cross-section of the international community. Now, this is a format which has 53 countries. It represents about 1/3 of the world population. It has about 40% of the world youth population here. And it spans all the continents, whether it is Asia, it is Pacific Island states, it is Europe, it is South America, it's Africa. And of course, in terms of level of development also, it has developing countries, it has developed countries like Australia, like Canada, like UK, and like Singapore. So there is a huge cross-section. And I think this provides a great opportunity for India to engage with these countries because for a variety of reasons. And for these countries also to engage with India, which is the third largest economy in the world in purchasing power parity terms, the fastest growing major economy in the world. So the market investment possibilities are huge.
So it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Win-win situation for all concerned.
For all concerned. Okay.
Yes.
Professor, you know, there have been questions raised about the relevance of the grouping or the association itself. Are we going to see a re-energized Commonwealth in days to come?
I think if the Commonwealth has to survive, it has to reimagine its future. It can't just be business as usual. And because as we know, business as usual means that countries like India were not very much engaged with the organization. And the organization was looking at a future where perhaps it was very clear that it will have to sort of reimagine its the terms of engagement with the wider set of countries. So I think here India's role becomes crucial, and I think fortuitously it happens at a time when Britain is looking at its own, reimagining its own foreign policy future. So I think both Britain seems to have recognized that India needs to be brought in a much bigger way. So we have seen that outreach where Britain has really reached out to New Delhi and asked it to take really lead in some of the platforms and issues that Commonwealth can take forward. But I think larger the sort of defensiveness that used to be, that used to define India's foreign policy posture is also gone. So I think clearly the whole argument that it is a relic of the past, a colonial legacy, etc., are no longer that relevant in the sort of context in which we are living in, where India is expanding its global footprint. So I think Commonwealth, as the ambassador pointed out, provides you that platform, or the country that platform where one can engage with a wider set of world community. And why should India not engage in it? I think that's a question that many in India have been asking, and perhaps the time has come to look at the organization, the platform differently, and to see what India can get out of it.
Okay, we need to take a re-look as far as the organization is concerned, is what you're suggesting. You know, Ambassador Mukherjee, let's talk about why India has neglected this organization or grouping for all these years. We've only hosted the Commonwealth Summit once in 1983. Since then, of course, we haven't been giving it too much of importance. Why the change in mind now?
Well, to be fair to our successive governments, the Commonwealth over the last few years particularly has not really engaged our attention at the level of other organizations such as BRICS, such as the G20, such as others of which we've become members, for the simple reason, not really because we looked at it as a colonial hangover or one of those cliched reasons, but simply because the organization itself was getting pretty moribund. But having said that, I'm rather, I think we should be appreciative of the fact that the present government has given signals that it wants to play a more proactive role in the government. And when I say proactive, I don't mean an overt leadership role. That's not what we are hankering for, but a much more proactive role. As the other panelists pointed out, there are certain advantages in the Commonwealth platform, quite apart from the statistics of the population it represents and the number of countries it represents. I mean, adding these up doesn't really qualify it as a very influential organization. But from our point of view, if my statistics are right, more than 30 of them are small nations, more than 20 of them are small island states. We've in the past, in the Indian Ocean Rim Organization and various others, have indicated that we would like to play a very supportive and cooperative role with these countries. They loom large in certain issues such as climate change, which directly affect them, in the waivers on the trade regimes given to the least developed countries and so on. And here, India's role has always been proactive. It is therefore time to underline it, and the Commonwealth offers a reasonably good platform to do it. Two other points.
Yes.
One, it is one organization where we don't have to constantly look over our shoulder for the elephant sitting in the room, which is China. And that's an advantage, realistically speaking. The other advantage is that although Pakistan is a member, it can't drum up support from, on the grounds of Islamic solidarity with OIC countries, which they do in other organizations. So all in all, I remember long ago, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, in one meeting of the External Affairs Committee of Parliament, which I attended, said that we should be in the Commonwealth, we should be in any platform that's useful to us. There is not only no harm in it, there is some good in it. So at the present moment, the signals from our government about playing a more active role is certainly something to be welcomed, although it's certainly not an occasion for us to tom-tom it from the tom-tom it as something hugely significant. Frankly, it's more significant. This summit is far more significant from the point of view of Britain, which post-Brexit is shopping around the world for free trade agreements.
Sure.
And the Commonwealth is one of its targets.
Indeed, that's something that I want to talk about as well. Ambassador Sajjanhar, taking the point that that Ambassador Mukherjee just made about, we are living in a post-Brexit era now, and the UK is looking for new avenues because clearly things are not working out in Europe. So that having been said, what is it that Britain expects from the Commonwealth?
Basically, I think for its voice to be heard, both at the political and at the economic level. As far as the politics of it is concerned, it provides it with a forum, with a platform where its voice can be heard. It is, the Queen is the chair of the Commonwealth, so wherever the meetings are held, either she or her representative is there, and Britain has a leading role to play. So when it is moving out, it is wants to make full use of a platform where its voice will be heard loud and clear. The other thing is in the economics of it. And in the economics, of course, India occupies a very, very significant position. As has been mentioned, out of the 53 countries, several of them are least developed or developing countries, which have problems of their own, whether it's in the area of economics or it's in the area of climate change or security. India is a country that is really rising, and that is why, you would see that why Mr. Modi also agreed to go there. The Prince Charles had come, specially invited him. There was a special letter of invitation from the Queen herself, and the red carpet treatment that has been given to him in London, as opposed to the other representatives, the heads of state, heads of government who are participating there. So Britain is also very keen to engage India because, again, as I had mentioned, as far as the Indian market is concerned. And of course, India is looking at Britain because Britain has always been our gateway to Europe. And now if Britain severs its connection to Europe, then what happens to our investment? What happens to our personnel, the professionals who are there?
And that's why the visit on the whole is very important, because he has visited the Nordic countries as well, and Germany now as a stopover. So that's also important because of the point that you just raised, Ambassador.
Absolutely. And I think the one-day visit, the bilateral component of the visit on the 18th, in which we saw a whole host of agreements that were entered into, whether it is on the tech space, whether it is cybersecurity, sustainable development across the board. And India has also agreed to put in a further $1 billion worth of investment in UK going forward. And we have such a large number of companies, 800 companies which are based there. We have about $20 billion investment, the reverse direction again $25 billion. So it's a strong relationship which we not only wish to preserve, but we wish also to promote, to take it forward.
Sure.
And I think that is what has really prompted Mr. Modi, the politics, the economics, and of course our own diaspora.
Indeed. Professor, what kind of a role do you see for India within the Commonwealth itself? Because, like Ambassador Mukherjee was saying, we have been playing a proactive role. It is time to be proactive. Should we also look at a leadership position?
Well, it depends on what sort of issues I think are on the table and where India can clearly push for its voice to be heard or amplified. I think the issues, for example, the 4 issues that you mentioned at the very beginning that were at the center, that were the centerpiece of this Commonwealth, security, trade, there was sustainable development, etc. I think are clearly issues on which India has already taken a leadership position on global platforms these days. And I think the articulation by this government that they do not want to be just simply rule takers but rule makers, part of this idea of a leading power, I think will get should get reflected in India's engagement in the Commonwealth. Leadership in the Commonwealth, see, it's not going to be easy because you also have positions where countries which will take antagonistic position to India. But I think that the clear message that is going out as far as Britain is concerned, as far as Commonwealth is concerned, as far as Commonwealth's future is concerned, that the Commonwealth has no future without India taking a more proactive role in it. And therefore, the idea that Commonwealth was moribund in the past was partly also India's responsibility, that it was not working because India also was not interested. Now that India is capable of shaping institutions, shaping the rules, global order, so in many ways it is India's role will have to be there if Commonwealth has to reimagine its own future. So I think what we are witnessing is somehow a convergence between Commonwealth's priorities and Indian priorities. And therefore, the idea that India and Britain together can shape the future of Commonwealth seems to have taken off with this summit. It may or may not work. Again, this is the very beginning of this idea. But I think all the signs are that the political leadership in both Delhi and London understand and that without India's engagement, the Commonwealth really cannot survive, because the issues that Commonwealth deals with really need the kind of heft that India brings to the table today.
Sure. Ambassador Mukherjee, that having been said, what should the priorities of the Commonwealth be going forward, and what is it that the other Commonwealth nations expect out of India?
Well, you know, first thing, I think let's get real. The reason Britain has pulled out its unfurled the red carpet and gone out of its way to send Prince Charles here with an invitation letter from the Queen and so on and so forth has absolutely nothing to do with Britain trying to lure India and attract India into playing a huge leading role in the Commonwealth because it has suddenly realized how wonderful Indian leadership is. It is simply to buttress its desire to engage with India for a future relationship which it seeks post-Brexit in terms of trade and investment and a new bilateral treaty, because the Indian market, the Indian population and the Indian market dwarf the rest of the Commonwealth put together. But the Commonwealth offers them a platform to do that. Fair enough. But let's not get carried away by, you know, this newfound, you know, sort of, let's not get carried away with the protocol as though it's a new change in policy. It isn't. Yes, it is a platform that offers us the opportunity of buttressing and promoting certain things which are of national interest to us, as well as international issues where we have spoken out, which affect our interests and are of international importance, and it's another platform to enable us to do that. So as far as priorities are concerned, I think one of the things that I have, you know, which I learned when I served in Africa for a long time, for instance, is that the smaller nations of the world and the developing nations, the LDCs, appreciate the Commonwealth's role in developmental areas, particularly the Commonwealth Fund for Technical Cooperation, and I was glad to hear that India has upped its contribution to that, and that I think should form the fulcrum of the main linchpin of our efforts of being proactive within the Commonwealth. It's in the developmental area, our various institutions which are appreciated and are in demand in the developing world that we should concentrate on. On international issues, we can use the Commonwealth to buttress and underline the positions that we've taken in other international fora. But it is these other fora that, if you look at each individual issue, which are actually the forerunner, in the front line as far as we are concerned. So as I said, we should use the Commonwealth to push the developmental agenda in the developing countries. And for the rest, you know, engage with the developing countries within the Commonwealth and the small island states, because to do so through the Commonwealth would make it a little easier for us, because doing it individually would be logistically that much more difficult. So useful, but not something that we should think will replace the other initiatives and the other platforms that we are part of.
Sure. All right. Let me introduce Nikhil Chouguley, co-founder, resident fintech, on the program right now. He joins us from London. Nikhil Chouguley, thank you for joining me on the program and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You know, as far as the CHOGM itself is concerned, what is it that the UK expects out of India? How do you see things going forward?
Thank you all for having me on this great show, first of all. So just as an introduction, I'm a banker based in London. And from that perspective, I'm really keen to say that UK is heavily dependent and sees India as the new jewel in its post-Brexit crown. And the result for that is UK finds itself isolated in between America and Europe. And all of a sudden, India acquires a new identity in this context. So the Commonwealth of government, heads of government that they've met here, that's all great. But UK is also seeing India as a special partner for the next generation of financial services, the special partner for the next generation of manufacturing and development, and especially in the technology sector. So UK has a lot of expectations from India, but UK, being a past colonial master of India, has also gotten itself in a very tricky socio-cultural and conceptual space. So, you know, there's a bit of hesitance and resistance as far as India is concerned in terms of openly accepting UK's position as a key stakeholder. So I'm seeing a lot of contradiction in UK's aspiration versus its colonial past. And now it's all of a sudden newfound dependence on India as its growth engine for the future. So UK finds itself in a very tricky position. But the point I want to make here is UK is still very important to India. This morning I was in Canary Wharf in the financial centre of London, and UK is still a huge capital market through which we will be able to, India will be able to access good, clean capital and then use that for a development agenda, use that for an industrial agenda, use that for leveraging technology for the benefit of our nations, for the benefit of not just Indian citizens, but also of the Commonwealth. So UK and India are on the verge of something very exciting and new at the moment. And UK, along with the Commonwealth, for sure, the UK has got access to global capital, especially in London, and I think here's a unique opportunity to leverage that position. India, UK, global capital centre, good things can happen.
Okay, good things can happen. It's a unique opportunity for both India and UK is what you're suggesting, and we seem to be on the verge of greatness is what you're suggesting. But let's not get carried away at this point in time. Ambassador, you know, as far as India's priorities are concerned, what should they be? And what is it that India can bring to the table as far as the Commonwealth is concerned?
Okay, as far as India's priorities are concerned, you know, what is it that we can get out of it? One definitely is, you know, we have been extremely active on our development partnership initiatives over the last so many years. You know, whether it is reaching out to Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, the Pacific Island states. For the first time, Prime Minister Modi went there in November 2014 after 28 years, you know, to Fiji and all that. And then there was a summit here also in India also the next year. So development partnership is a very, very integral element of our reaching out to these developing countries. So that in the context of the Commonwealth assumes special significance. The other is, you know, because of the nature of this body, that there are also developed countries. You have Australia, you have Canada, you have Britain, you have even Singapore and some of the others. So that is where some of India's flagship programs, you know, Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, Smart Cities, these are the areas where we can cooperate with these countries and leverage their technology and their expertise and experience in doing whatever we want to do. And of course, in terms of getting capital and technology. Another element, Frank, and this would be that this is a grouping of 53 countries, provides an excellent platform for our leadership to reach out to different countries. For instance, now the Prime Minister, he's met Sheikh Hasina, a very important relationship. She is expected to visit here. This is the first meeting after her visit to India in April last year. He's met the President of Seychelles. We know what the problems, what the issues with the Assumption Island, with construction of infrastructure there are concerned. He's met the Prime Minister of Mauritius. He's met a whole host of leaders and also from Africa, from South America and the Pacific Island states. So, you know, when we are having our aspirations, become a member of the NSG, become a permanent member of the UN Security Council, etc., this is a platform which really provides us with good possibilities. And I think what they can expect from us is our big market, our investments into those countries, and our cooperation, collaboration to improve the standards of living and to strengthen the economies in those countries.
All right, Ambassador, I know you have to be somewhere else. Thank you for joining me on the program and sharing your views with us.
Thank you.
Professor, taking the discussion forward now, you know, how can the Commonwealth become strategically relevant for India in the days to come?
See, it's not going to become suddenly relevant for India. We have to, after you know, it being such a moribund institution for such a long time, it's not as if tomorrow it's going to emerge out of its strategic stasis and become a very, very important player. I think, as was pointed out, India has other platforms in which it is much more engaged and much deeply engaged, where perhaps it pursues its strategic ambitions much more categorically. But I think Commonwealth allows India to reach out to such a wide variety of countries in one go that I think in itself is perhaps a great advantage in being a part of that platform. And insofar as I think the issues, for example, of trade are concerned, and there has been a lot of discussion around what is happening in the larger world, how the tariff wars are becoming the new normal. Major powers are embroiled in trade wars. You look at the Sino-American relationship today. And I think where at a time when protectionist barriers are rising, India, for example, can champion a sort of a rules-based global order through certain institutions where China is not there. So I think that, that element where you are yourself deciding the rules of the game in some ways and trying to shape some of those rules is, I think, an important platform which should not be given a go by. If it's there, then why not use it to the benefits, to whatever limited benefits it can give us? And I think that is something that India should be working towards, not looking at a mirage where something suddenly will emerge and where Commonwealth will suddenly reinvent itself. I think that's a gradual process.
Indeed, it is a gradual process, and this is just the beginning. There's still a long way to go. Ambassador Mukherjee, I'm going to go back to the point that several of the panelists, in fact, all the panelists made about, China not being a part of the Commonwealth. Does that make the Commonwealth far more inviting for India?
Well, I wouldn't say it makes it far more inviting. We are members of a host of very important organizations where China is a member. And we operate quite comfortably in those organizations and express our points of view. In fact, it allows us to engage with China, which, by itself, engaging with China and figuring out China as our main foreign policy challenge is probably, to put a straight, blunt face on it, far more important than the membership of the Commonwealth. So that's not the point. The point is that not having China there removes one obstacle to meaningful discussion where in certain cases the ambivalent relationship that exists between India and China simply derails otherwise useful initiatives. Just that. So in that sense, the absence of China enables us to go ahead without having to worry about China taking a negative position simply because India is taking some position. That's all. That it doesn't mean that we operate far more efficiently with China's this thing. Having said that, I agree with Professor Pant. It is a grouping of 53 countries. Its membership has very small island states as well as developing countries and least developed countries with whom we want to play, who are already friends of us, with whom we have friendly relations. And we do a lot bilaterally with them. The Commonwealth allows us an additional platform for outreaching the same message to these countries.
Indeed.
So let's take it as it...
Ambassador, sorry to cut you short. I'm going to get one final comment in from Nikhil Chouguley before I end the program. Nikhil Chouguley, as the world is getting far more protectionist, are there going to be new avenues through the Commonwealth in the days to come?
Yes, certainly. So I've seen in the example of the European Union something good that has come off across the world. I've seen two mortal enemies in the form of France and Germany come together and create perfectly new world order. And this has been the basis of the European Economic Community, European Economic Trading Area, and now the European Union. It's a pity that the UK is now walking out of it and then will be bearing the economic consequences. So within the Commonwealth, there's an opportunity to co-create, to generate common capital, to leverage our common infrastructure, our heritage, cultural heritage, as well as our administrative network and legal network that we have. So there are lots of common points here that will make business and doing business across these boundaries a lot easier, provided there's political will, provided there's good capital, clean capital.
Good, clean capital and political will at the end of the day is what is required to make this work, is what you're suggesting. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective. For us, what's coming out of this debate is that the Commonwealth is a useful platform for us, and it's something that should be used in the days to come. With that, that's it from me. See you again next time.